I'm Erin Brown. Body image is kind of my thing. I specifically deal with anything that fucks with women's autonomy. So anything that says, I'm in charge of you, not you. And unfortunately, that's a lot of stuff. But to me, the primary place we have to start with that is body image. It is very challenging for me to tackle how I use my voice and how that's perceived because of my gender if I show up in my body as an apology. That's the first place we have to get comfortable. And it's the first place we're not doing very well. It's a really big conversation, and we're starting to talk about it. I'm excited about that. I'm so excited to be talking about this as its own thing here because it's its own thing. We can't just like throw in some nonsense about self-esteem while we're doing a squat and call it good. This is deep shit. Because women are taught to hate themselves. We are taught to hate ourselves from the time that we are little girls. And the reason I inserted myself into this conversation, and it's not surprising to me now, but a year ago being like, I don't know who you are, Molly Galbraith, but I need to be speaking at your event, was a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But this is really important to me because you all are the gatekeepers of this conversation. We hate ourselves. And so we're coming to you, and we're coming to you more than ever before. And you know this. You don't have to own a gym. You're the fitness enthusiast amongst your friends. You're the personal trainer. They come to you and they say, I have this mess, I'm gross, I feel terrible. Fix me. Can you fix me? And I hope that's sad. I hope you aren't numb to it because that's what they're saying to you. To talk about this, I'm going to tell my own story, both because I believe in the power of personal narrative over just preaching. I think that you're more likely to identify with your own story and do some thinking on your own if I'm telling my story and not telling you what yours should be. Also, because unfortunately, while there's a lot of my story that's very sad to me, it's also statistically significant in every way. It's almost like, and I kind of wonder about this, if I was coming to be and I was like, sweet baby Jesus, the women are struggling. I'll take 4 of each of those problems because I'd really like to dig in there. Because I went really hard. But before I start, I would like to give one request. I will probably, particularly with fitness professionals, say something at some point that will make you defensive. I'm just telling my story and giving my perspective. I'm not telling you what you need to think about your own body. I would never. In fact, one of the main things I hear from fitness professionals or women who are interested in fitness is that we shouldn't be talking about this because we need to beat ourselves up so that we can strive to be better. I completely disagree with that. That might be something you struggle with that I say. So I want you to write it down for a couple of reasons. One, I have been doing this work for 6 years and I can count on one hand the amount of times that somebody has challenged my ideas and not my appearance. So I would love to have someone challenge my ideas. You are very fortunate to be beholding the 1999 Kansas State champion debater. So I welcome difficult conversations. I also know how to do that respectfully and will not tell you that you're stupid and ugly because you disagreed with me. I know how to not do that. So I would love to be challenged by women who have a different idea than me. But also, in the time that I'm speaking, and until we have time for questions later or you meet with me, I want you to write down what I said. I want you to write down the word, the phrase, what it was that made you uncomfortable, even if you dismiss it. And I want you to look at it until we talk and say, what is it about me that is struggling with that? It doesn't mean that you have to agree with me in the end. We can duke it out. You might challenge me to grow in a new way. But I want you to look at it and say, what is it about me that's struggling with that? Okay, so my story starts when I was 4. I don't know how many of your moms or have kids in your life, but 4, for reference, is a really exuberant age. My daughter's 7, and when she was 4, she wanted to be the President of the United States, a princess, a firefighter, and a unicorn. Get it, right? I don't know how you're going to do unicorn, but I'm really excited to figure it out. When I was 4, I had a more singular pursuit. I wanted to be a ballerina more than anything in the world. And so my mom signed me up for a class, and we went and got an outfit. I got a pink leotard, pale pink, and I wouldn't be too obnoxious. Why? With pink tights and pink shoes and a pink wrap skirt to conceal my thighs, my idea. And I remember 2 things about class. The first is it was in a dance studio, and there was a huge mirror so we could watch our form, and we did something called frog leaps. I'm sure that's not actually what they're called, like this across the room. And I hated them because my thighs jiggled and none of the other girls did. The other thing I remember about class is at the end of class, the teacher would stand by the door and we would stand catty corner in a row, and all the other girls would like hurry to be first in line. This was the best part of class, and she would call us by name, and we ran across the room one by one. She picked us up over her head and delivered us to our parents. Everyone loved this except me. I was so full of anxiety. I thought, I'm too big. She's gonna drop me. It will be so embarrassing. Everyone's gonna know I'm fat. And so I hid in the back and waited till there was like 2 left and then tried to skirt out. I quit, and it was the first of many things I would quit or not try because I was so overwhelmingly certain that something was just wrong with me. Elementary school was tough, and looking back, I've always been obsessed with this notion that I was obese, but I haven't always been obese. And so looking back, I was a really average-sized kid. I wasn't having conversations with my doctor and my mom about my diet. There was no cause for concern. But I just didn't look like my peers. I never did that thing that kids do where they sprout up really fast and then they don't grow out, you know? And we call this an awkward growth spurt for a reason. They're like kind of all limbs. But I was the only one who didn't do that. I always filled out nicely. But being different in elementary school was not very cool. So I was teased quite a bit. They called me buffalo butt, which doesn't really, I mean, that doesn't do anything to me now, but it really did at the time. And my mom pulled out an encyclopedia pre-Google and showed me a picture of a buffalo. And I went back to school proud with the information that buffaloes actually have big heads and very small butts, so I will take that as a compliment. Thank you. And that just wasn't the kind of like first grade witty banter that stopped teasing, oddly. They would say boom bada when I walked across the classroom. It was a hard time. And my parents thought, they still think, that I really loved school. But I just was terrified to not be there because they teased me so mercilessly when I was there that I was worried about what would happen in my absence. In junior high, the stakes were raised because no longer was all of this turmoil and shame and just disgust I had for myself only attached to what I could do. Now it was attached to who could love me, who would want me. My friends and I were all kind of obsessed with this, and for reference, we were all normal-sized girls. There wasn't any cause for concern. We're not talking about health. We're talking about appearance. We're talking about perception. So we came up with a solution. We had a game where we each had a safe food. Theirs were all saltines, mine was Cheerios. And we would see who would go the longest eating the smallest amount of this food. So we were 13-year-old children starving ourselves. I didn't like myself very much, so I spent a lot of time in dangerous situations I probably wouldn't have put myself in had I liked myself. And I had to have my sister sit at the back of the room, so I hope I can contain myself. She's never been here for this. I was sexually assaulted several times the year I was 13. I can see looking back that this is where all of that shame I had for my body was really compounded times trauma. That is really important to mention in a room full of women who talk to women about their bodies. If the statistics that we know are true, and I know that they aren't, they're much higher, 30 women in this room share that with me. And they share that with my sister. So we had really different reactions to this. She was 15, I was 13. I started to overfeed myself. I was damaging myself in that way. I was trying to disappear. I felt huge and invisible the whole time I was overweight, and that's when that really started for me. My sister starved herself, and she actually struggled with an eating disorder, the primary difference being addiction, and we almost lost her. She was trying to disappear completely. This body image stuff is not just throw a Band-Aid on it and say something nice. Our whole lived experiences is in our bodies, and we can pretend not to look at that stuff. That's what we're really talking about. You have a 1 in 4 chance, and I would think it's more like 1 in 2, when a woman comes to you and says, please fix me, that there's a whole lot behind that you might never know, that she might never admit. So I went to high school and continued to pack on weight. It was easier to pack on weight in high school because I did this thing in junior high. I hope I'm not the only one. I thought it was really embarrassing that I didn't drive even though I was like 14, so I walked everywhere because like my parents couldn't be there. So when I got to high school, I gained weight more easily because I had a car, so physical activity was no longer an important part of being cool. So I gained a lot of weight in high school, and when I went to college, this is when I really leveled up again. There are more stories. I could really tell stories forever. But in college is when I met this key man. I call him my kryptonite. We seek proof that our perceptions are real, and in him I found all of my perceptions of myself looking back at me. We dated for 2 weeks, and he broke up with me because he said that my weight was bad for his reputation. right? That's awful, right? Well, there's no villain in this story. I need to be accountable for that. So I didn't walk away from him. I didn't go, that's a mess of his own stuff, and it really is. I don't have any animosity towards him. He's not a bad person. That wasn't kind. But I didn't acknowledge that that was his stuff and not mine. Instead, I just attached myself to him. It was like, here was almost an exciting goal, a quantitative way that I could finally be worthy. Because he agrees with me. He sees me. I'm fat and disgusting and not worthy of love. So if I can convince him, maybe I can be good enough. And so I reverted back to my old behaviors. I started starving myself again. I didn't have any supervision, and so I had the free rein to start binging and purging, became a part of my experience. And then, in complete desperation, I turned to fitness. And at face value, I was doing things that were really positive. I would go to the gym, and I had kind of elliptical. Regardless of how you feel about the elliptical machine, there's a positive thing, right? I'm doing something good for me. I took up jogging. It's a nice little activity. Except I only used that time to belittle myself. And so I wasn't going out for a jog, and like now I jog, and I'm like, oh, butterfly, where are you going, little guy? I'm like, having such a great time. I just used that time to beat myself up. And so I would say to myself in my head as I ran, things I would never imagine saying to another human. Like, you lard ass, pick it up and run. If I had to walk, which I now call interval training, I called a complete failure as a human. And so I was successful. I became really good at gaining and losing lots of weight. But that wasn't really sustainable because at some point I would figure out I could beat myself just as easily on the couch as on a run. And so I just did this fluctuating thing. I didn't win the guy. I did major in him in college. For 4 years, we continued a relationship in which he didn't acknowledge me in public. And I tried really, really hard to measure up to his standards of beauty. So, how are we doing good so far? Is everybody hanging in there? It's gonna get better. Around this time, I met my husband. It was a dark time for me. You can't really starve yourself and throw up all the time and hate yourself and not also suffer from some mental health stuff. That is mental health stuff. So I had a lot of anxiety and depression. But when I met my husband, I was on a bit of a high because I'd kicked this guy to the curb. I successfully lost 60 pounds because I was gonna show him, you know, look at what the fuck are we showing people? What is that we're doing? But I lost 60 pounds. I met my husband. I left Nebraska where I went to school and was like, I'm starting a new life. It's a new me. And I moved to Kansas City with my husband. It turns out wherever you go, there you are. So now I was in Kansas City with the same shit. And my husband was a rapper at the time. He was touring internationally with big acts. He was being courted by big, management, labels, that's it. He doesn't do this anymore. I don't live in this world. But at the time, he was a really big deal. And MySpace was a thing, so I was in his top 8, like really cool. But there was a place where you could blog on MySpace, and there started to be blogs popping up about who Joe Good's new fat girlfriend was. That was kind of a hard knock. But I was really attached to this idea that my body was an object. It was disgusting. It was here to be evaluated by other people. And whatever you have to say about me, especially the negative, then becomes my self-definition. So I went ahead and quickly gained the 60 pounds that I had lost before I met him and added another 30 for good measure. And I really was disgusted with myself at this point. I was embarrassed. And I mostly remember being embarrassed for him. Like, he deserves so much more than what I have to offer is wrong. And I feel like most women have 2 weights. There's like the goal weight that's probably on your driver's license. And there's this other weight that's like the hell weight, that's like the consolation prize if you're somewhere in the middle. And for me, for a long time, 180 pounds was that thing that I wasn't. But then when I started living comfortably around 180 pounds, then it was 200 pounds. It was always, at least I'm not 200 pounds, because that would just be inexcusable. And somehow in this time, I was so in my own head and so depressed that I missed the opportunity to look at the scale and really kick myself into gear and start starving myself again. And so I gained enough weight to be tipping the scale at 240 pounds. And that number to me was just paralyzing. I was like, I can't even do that math. Like, I have gone completely off the deep end. I became a person who was really hard to love. I didn't want my husband to touch me. I sure didn't want him to look at me. I didn't want to leave the house. I wouldn't go to his shows. I was mortified. And then I got pregnant. I blame sweet baby Jesus and or alcohol because we must have touched the once. I mean, really, we were both actually startled, like when could that have happened? But I knew as soon as I was pregnant that I was pregnant. And I knew as soon as I was pregnant that I was having a girl. And that did not keep me from praying like I had never prayed before that I would have a boy. And for a lot of good reasons. I mean, you know, every woman in my family has been sexually assaulted and too ashamed to talk about it until me and my sister, hooray! We don't earn as much as men for doing the same work. There's a lot of reasons that I wasn't excited about bringing a little girl into this culture. And so I was like, boys get to do stuff. Let me just be a mom of a boy that gets to do stuff. And I remember laying on the table, I'm having the sonogram, and I'm holding my husband's hand, and the woman says, it's a girl, and his eyes filled with tears. He was so excited. And I wish I could have shared that with him. I love the idea of not living with regret, but this is a regret of mine. I've never met a man who wanted to be a daddy like he did, and he was so excited to have a little girl, and I just knew that I was so ill-equipped for this job. There's something that happens in life and death situations where everything becomes really, really clear. So if you're like driving to work and you're late and you've got the wrong shoes on and you're thinking about your email and you have a meeting with your boss, and all of these things are real pressing issues that are going to be stressful in your day. If you get a phone call in that moment that someone close to you has died, none of that matters. And all of a sudden you just want to like call your mom and like maybe tell her you're sorry. You know? Everything that really matters to you is just all there is. And laying on that table was that moment for me. I was going to have a little girl. And I knew as her same-sex parent, I would be her primary role model. I would teach her what it is to be a woman. And all I had to teach her was how to hate herself. I could see really clearly that trajectory of whatever I said in my mirror, not to her, whatever I said in my mirror would become her inner voice. And I had a lot of work to do. I also knew that I hadn't learned this from Cosmopolitan magazine. I used to do slam poetry. I still love that. I'm a feminist. I like to talk about like women's issues, and I understood the beauty myth and all of this stuff, but I didn't learn to hate myself at 4 from Cosmopolitan magazine. The man was not getting me down. I learned that from watching my mother. And my mother would have never said anything bad to me about me. I'm extremely lucky on the mom front, but I watched her do what most women did. She was always on a diet. I grew up with a house full of Weight Watchers meals. She compared herself to the other moms disparagingly. She apologized to me for being a fat mom, and she's not fat, by the way. I thought she made the sun come up. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. So if she couldn't love herself, of course, who am I to? So I needed to become a confident and powerful woman because I also knew, and I was absolutely correct, that I wasn't just having a baby girl. I was going to be having a ferocious baby girl. For reference, her and Jen Sinkler share a birthday. I have a ferocious Leo baby. And I wanted for her, because I knew she would have all of this stuff I couldn't completely dismantle by the time she turned 16, although I am fucking trying. I needed to be a powerful example of how to live outside of that. I needed to live in my body in a powerful way. I needed to be confident so that she had any frame of reference for what that might look like. So, where to begin? The first thing that I did is I owned my voice. I paid attention to the way I talked to myself, and I said, from that day, and I haven't, I would not say another disparaging thing about my body. I would not. And that created a mindfulness shift for me because I had named it. I wasn't worried about this stuff. I didn't lay on that table and think, oh no, I'm going to be a fat mom, I'm going to raise a fat kid. None of this mattered anymore. I didn't want to talk to myself like that. And so in shifting that perspective, it was actually a really kind of sad time. It was a lot of grieving for me because I realized how often I was being terrible to myself. I thought, honestly, that I was having a natural reaction to being me. Anybody who looked like me would feel this way. And I found that I was belittling myself at every turn of my day in this ritualistic fashion. I would wake up in the morning and my stomach has always been something that's off limits. You might see me just like sitting around touching my belly. Sorry, I'm not sorry. making up for lost time. I've been so mean to this gal. But it was a place that like boyfriends were never allowed to touch, and it was a thing. And I would wake up in the morning having comforted myself by holding myself, and my immediate feeling waking up with the sun was disgust. How disgusting. And then I would move to get dressed and put on 20 different outfits to find the best optical illusion for the day, because then if I just perfectly, then no one will know what I look like. This is insane, but I was doing this all day. I would explain how much I was eating. All day long, I was beating myself up. And so I slowly but surely shifted those mantras. Mantras is kind of like a new agey thing, and even I picture a perfectly manicured Instagram photo of a woman on a mountain love is love is love is love, right? But we all have mantras. We all know somebody who they spill coffee on themselves or stub their toe or something happens, and the first thing they say is, of course this happened to me. This always happens to me. That is a mantra. That is a life mantra, and it's a really powerful one. It's also a choice. And so I started choosing better ones, and I couldn't go from you're disgusting. My mantras before were you're disgusting, everyone thinks so, you don't deserve anything good, to girl, you're banging, and we're gonna Beyonce today. I couldn't do quite that. So I started somewhere in the middle, and I even had to fake that. So I started with just really neutral. I would stand in my mirror, and I would feel this stuff coming. I would acknowledge it. I would name it. I'm bullying myself. This isn't what I want for my baby. This is what I look like on Tuesday. This is the starting point, which is one of the sadder ones to me that worked really well for me in the beginning, because I still couldn't be peaceful without thinking of an end result. I can choose peace instead of this, is something I still regularly say to myself in difficult moments. Sometimes we need to choose to be peaceful. And I got pretty good at it. And then I started to choose nicer things. And I would be like, your hair right there, that's good today. And just eased into talking to myself better, but I was mindful of it. I'd owned my voice. This was my responsibility. My voice is mine, and I don't agree with all of this stuff I've been doing before, so I'm gonna learn a new way. It took practice, but I got good. And then I had a baby, and I was feeling good, and I was like, I really need to level up. I'm not sure, I got this part down, but I need to do something else. I wanna be powerful and not just I don't hate myself. And so I thought back to all of the women I'd ever talked to about their bodies, and I have a bartender therapist personality. I have all your fucking stories, I know them. And I was trying to think of anyone I had ever known who had ever said something positive about themselves. And I could come up with one example, just one. In junior high, when we were doing the starving challenge, one of my friends in 9th grade got called up to play soccer for the junior varsity high school team. Where I live, there's 2 high schools, they're Division I, that rarely happens, and so it was a really big deal. And we were reporting in about how much weight we lost or whatever we were reporting about, and she said, I can't do it. I tried, but I couldn't perform. And that was really important. Plus, there were probably boys there that were watching her play soccer, I don't know. But for some reason, this stood out to me as the one time I had ever heard a woman say something that was not about the appearance of her body. She needed to perform. And so I was like, that's it. I'm going to become an athlete. Now, this, I'll spare you the stories, but they're all really, really embarrassing of me playing sports that just didn't work out well. The only place I was good in college, I played 1 year of rugby, mostly because that involved tackling people and drinking, and I'm really good at both of those things. So I decided I was going to become an athlete, and for me, at 240 plus pounds, I don't know, I wasn't weighing myself at this time, because I was 240 pounds when I got pregnant, so, things happened. I needed to start really slow. And so I started by walking around the block with my dogs 3 times a week, around the block. I would add more days, and then I would go a little bit farther. And this nurse I was working with at the hospital, who was like a human Pinterest before there was a Pinterest, she cut out magazine articles for people and handed them to them. It was a very lovely service. When I quit working with her, she started mailing them to me. But she handed me an article from Prevention Magazine called Turn Your Walk into a Jog. And I researched, Prevention Magazine is geared towards women over 40. I was 25 and I could walk. Science says I can do this program. So I set out, and the first day we were supposed to jog for a minute and walk for 6, and I couldn't jog for a minute. Had I set out to fix myself, had I been there saying, this needs to fix me, something's wrong with me, I would have gone home and weighed myself and seen that it wasn't working. I would have kicked myself and never gone back. Those walks around the block wouldn't have been a good enough starting point. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. But instead, I was like, okay, so today, 20 seconds, great. Tomorrow I'm doing a minute. Every day, went out. It took me a week to run for a minute, but I ran that damn minute. And in that same year, doing the same thing. And if you're a runner, you totally know this. Anyone knows this, but running seems like really extreme to me in terms of the sports I've experienced, where you can be like superwoman one day and the next day be like, why is walking hard? So it wasn't, you know, this beautiful 10% better every day trajectory. I just kept going to see what can I do today. And I let showing my daughter that I deserved my own time and care be the whole thing. And that same year I couldn't run a minute, I ran a half marathon. Boom! What? That's amazing! And I just like cried when I crossed the finish line, and it was the 40-yard line of Husker Stadium, just to like give me, if there's a movie made about me, that's gonna be a really good moment. I cried from the gut, like I'd never it was like projectile crying when I crossed that finish line, because I had surpassed so many of my old limitations. And I was excited. I was like, what else can I do? Holy shit, I didn't think I could do anything. And I just did this thing that those other people do. Like all those other people that are somehow better than me, I did this thing. So I got excited and I started doing weightlifting, which turns out is way more my jam than running. But it was really fun. I tried yoga, I still do that. I did Zumba, not good at choreography. But I was just really experimenting and trying and excited about the path. Now, I'd also lost a lot of weight. I lost about 100 pounds. I became a personal trainer, which my sister actually made happen. All of the work I do now is because of her. She came over one day, and I was really excited to show her this notebook I'd made. I was reading women's weightlifting magazines that I got from half-price books, so like old women's weightlifting magazines, and I cut out all of the programs, and I had them labeled as like shoulder work and circuit training, and I was gonna make us a weightlifting program because I started lifting with her, and I'm like, look at my notebook. And she's like, girl, you have gone off the deep end. Why aren't you a personal trainer? And it was also kind of an organic process that I became a trainer because I had lost a lot of weight and everybody was coming to me, how can you fix me? So I became a personal trainer and had lost a lot of weight. And I was doing really great. And there's this saying I'm gonna botch that's like whenever you think you've learned something, the universe tests it or something, you know, whatever, something. That happened big. So I had this moment where I was like, well, I kind of made it though, right? Kind of made it. I'd always been obsessed with this notion that I was fat, and that was wrong about me, and I couldn't be this other person, and then I became this other person. I went from a size 26 to a size 4'6". I'm not that today, and that's fine. But at this time, I was a 4'6". I had visible bones, which I wasn't super excited about, but it was just the training I was doing and excited about at the time that had resulted in this body. So don't I get like the pot of gold at the end of the weight loss rainbow? Like, isn't everyone gonna like me and agree now that I'm beautiful and wonderful? And with the business came an online profile. With the weight loss journey came a lot of commentary. And I had this moment where I realized that it wasn't just fat to thin. That's all that I knew. That's from 4 years old, fat to thin, get thin, then you'll be good enough. And as soon as I got there, and I was there for all intents and purposes, I was handed a new list. And it was much longer. And it was like, keep the boobs and the butt and then lift it, but also abs, maybe, but it depends on who you talk to because sometimes then that's masculine. And I had men that I just work with that I didn't know concerned about my loss of breast tissue because this is one fitness myth. You can totally spot reduce boobs because I'm capable of that. Like fat loss, boobs, you know. But I enjoyed that actually because it was the first time in my life I could wear a camisole to my grandma's house and not just be like all girls, you know. That was kind of fun for me. But there was concern. I had well-meaning friends be like, don't you miss your breasts? Like I needed to mourn this. All of a sudden, there was this long, long list, and if you really get into it, it then gets contradictory. Like, am I supposed to look like Twiggy or Kim Kardashian, or how do I get their parents? It's very confusing. And I started to get this commentary online. And I have this practice, and if you follow me, you saw this week I had what looked like a big face herpy. And I didn't want to leave my house because it was like huge and like the kind of face injury where people are like, what happened? And I didn't want to be like, I thought it was a zit, and then it went bad. So my practice is just that I put it online immediately. I just own it. And I'm not looking for validation. I don't accept that either way. But I'm owning it. I'm saying this is something I'm feeling insecure about, and that actually doesn't jive with my value system, that needs to mess with my day. So I did this one day. I was going to the beach, and I was going with a friend who had recently lost a lot of weight and got a boob job. And for some reason, I put on my bathing suit, and that was triggering some I'm going to be sitting next to her feelings at the beach. And so I took a picture, and I put it online, and I was like, me and my cellulite and my deep belly button, because even in a size 4-6, I have a deep belly button, and I've just decided that's going to be good enough, okay? My stretch marks, we're all going to the beach, we're going to have a great time, because that's what my life is about, and that's what I value. On this picture that's benign, there was a lot of comments, and this was the first time I really got a lot of comments. Both, this is a common thing, women will compliment me as a means to bash themselves. So it's like, of course you feel that way. If I looked like you, I'd walk around naked all day, which is like not, first of all, no, you wouldn't. And second of all, it's not really a compliment if you're like lowering yourself to do, please don't hand that to me. And then this was the first time I would get this comment many times. I would kill myself if I looked like you. I don't think I would be here if social media was a thing at 13. If someone said to me at 13 that they would kill themselves if they look like, I don't say that lightly. I don't think I would be here. I have received that comment more than any other. And so this was my opportunity to level up. That's what I like to think about it when you have another freaking growth opportunity. It's like, it's cool, I'm gonna level up here. I had the framework to deal with this. I did think that I'd won, and it turns out that I hadn't. That there is no there. I thought for a long time there was a there, and maybe I had arrived. There is no there. As long as you're looking for someone else to validate you, for your body to be perfect, for the butterflies that come out of your butt when you weigh a certain amount of weight, it's not going to happen. You just find out that there's more. If you're motivated by picking yourself apart and hating yourself, you're growing that. You're motivating hating yourself and picking yourself apart. You'll get more things. There are always more things. So I went back to my practice, and I said positive things to myself. I went back to neutral if I had to, and I went to positive, and I was doing well. I am doing well. Now I have this experience living in my body that is completely different. I get to be objective about it. So sometimes I weigh more, and sometimes I weigh less, and sometimes I can lift more, and sometimes I can lift less. Lift less, that's the phrase. And it's fine. It's all objective to me. I can look at what's happening today, and I can look objectively at my behavior, and I can decide whether or not I want to make modifications moving forward. And that's where we want our clients to be. That's where we want to be, right? Where we're making empowered choices about our bodies. I get to set goals that have to do with my values and priorities. And it turns out right now, and that can change, this is a value statement, not a values judgment, I do not train for aesthetics. I don't. I have a lot of mental health issues in my past. Training sustains me. And if I'm in a hard time in my life, I'm not HIIT training, and I'm not doing sprint intervals. I'm hiking. And I'm hiking my buns off because that's what my brain needs. Because unlike college, I can't hold myself up in a room for a month and get high and write bad poems. I have to deal with my child who's actively having a childhood. So I take care of myself. That's what I'm doing. So I don't train for aesthetics. And I like to say that. I'm also not interested in fat loss, which doesn't mean that any of you can't be. I just like to say that because I don't think you ever hear a woman say that. So I am a woman who's not trying to lose weight, just so you know. My training is fun. I've been learning how to get upside down. My sister was trying to teach me how to do a handstand recently, and I had this visceral reaction of tears that I wasn't familiar with. She says that, what was it, fear of not being enough? I don't know. So I had to get over that. I'm doing handstands almost. I tripled my deadlift this year. For all intents and purposes, the health police, thank you, the health police don't have to come after me. I'm taking care of myself. But it's just not in a pursuit of being less in some way. So how do you get there? I kind of already told you, but I'm going to reiterate. And what you do to help others is the same as what you do for yourself, because spoiler alert, if you want to help someone with something, you have to own your own shit too. So the first thing you have to do is own your voice. Own your voice. Hear what you're saying about yourself. I don't talk about my body anymore, but sometimes I'll get down on myself, and my husband's really good at saying, "You're talking about my wife." And he gets mad at me, and I'm like, dang, okay, I'll do better. Own your voice. You don't have to say positive things immediately if you can't get there. Say something neutral. You all lift, you all run, you all have things that you're proud of that you can do in your bodies. Pay attention to that. ask yourself when this is happening, is the way I'm thinking actually aligned with my own values? It's not for me. That's why I posted the weird thing I was having. I didn't want to go out of the house. I didn't want to have this conversation over and over again about the pimple that wasn't. But that's not in line with my values. My values said, I am here to get shit done today. I'm a powerful lady, and my face it's not owing anything to anyone ever. So that's not in line with my values. And that gets to take up as much space as it needs, which is like, and move on. That's it. That's it. Own your voice. This also pertains to how you talk to other women, how you talk about other women's bodies. That may be counterintuitive, but when you're looking at another woman, and I do this all the time, I've trained myself, if I look at another woman's butt and am having some sort of negative reaction to that, that is my shit. That is mine. And I immediately say, what is it about me that is having that reaction? Am I having like a bad butt day? Do I need to like hang out in the mirror a little bit and give you some love? Like I deal with me. But that's a reflection. So owning your voice is both about what you say about yourself and what you say about others. Name it with empathy, and this might be a difference in your practice and with your friends. Name with empathy the behavior. Don't let another woman come to you and say, fix me, and give her a training plan. Because you can't fix what she's talking about. But she can if you help her see what that is. Name it. So that might look like, hey, it sounds like you're really beating yourself up today. I get it. I do that too. When I have a bad day, I look in the mirror, I see only flaws, and that's just not a really powerful place for me to operate from. And so what do? I like to get moving. That gets me in my body where I feel good about it. Or I focus on something I feel really good about. I focus on my abilities. What do you do? Let it be genuine. Don't use my words. But name it. Provide context that's your own. I get it. I understand this. We do get this. This is a shared history. This is seeped into my pores from my mother's 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 mother. We get it. Don't act like you don't get it. Tell her you get it, but name it for her. And then give her new words. 3. For you too. Choose something new. My favorite thing when I was a trainer was to watch women squat. That's not true. My favorite thing is to watch women squat. It's just like so powerful. It's my favorite thing for myself too. And so when I was still training women, I would walk them through a squat, and it's usually like week 4 maybe, they're really getting their form on and we're maybe adding some weight. And as soon as they rack, I would make a point to be like, that was so powerful. Do you feel powerful right now? Because give them new words. We need to have our own words, but it's really helpful when somebody else provides you with something like that. And powerful is a space I'd like to see us occupy much more than, oh, you look so skinny. And that's the thing. It's fine to have weight loss goals. I would never tell you what you're allowed to do with your body. That is completely against my morals. However, there is a thing about telling men to get big and strong and telling women to get little. That's a really powerful message about who you're allowed to be. So find some new words. Even if like you look skinny because that's a part of your goal is in there, give them some new words too. So there's lots of place-to-place blame for this. There is Photoshop, there is the media. I could stay mad at my mom. That would be really hard because my husband describes her as being the personification of a quilt, and that's probably the best description of her. Actually, to that end, I'm really proud to say that this year was her first time that she had a high school reunion that she didn't do the math where she, sees the date coming up and then counts 2 pounds times the weeks, how small she can be by then. I still struggle to not do that math, and that is not what I believe in. That's just what my brain automatically does when I see a date on the calendar. This year, she had a high school reunion, and she told me that she went out when she saw the date and she got an outfit she felt good in today, and she was probably going to up her vegetables, and she was probably going to keep her walking, but that she was going to show up as she was, and thank you, daughter. How about that? This stuff is contagious. We learn from each other how to feel. There's a reason everyone in this room gets this. It's not just me. I am not a snowflake. Who said that? The trouble with blaming all of those outside influences, even if you're looking at the big stuff, and there's lots of activism, lots of powerful ways to dismantle that big stuff. If I could wave a magic wand and make it all go away, you would still be left with the most powerful thing of all, and that's your voice. I can't change that, but you can. And you can start to hold yourself accountable for what you're saying. You can start to hold yourself accountable for what you're thinking. You can start to ask yourself, like I asked me, what do I want for my baby? What do I want for other little girls? Is this the conversation I want them to be having? Because here's where we're at. 53% of girls who are 13 years old report being unhappy with their bodies, and that statistic raises to 78% by the time they're 17. 6 in 10 girls, this was really sad. This was like a 5-minute Google search. This is not like even getting into the information. 6 in 10 girls report that they stopped doing what they loved because of how they looked. That for me was ballet, which is maybe not particularly sad to me. In the end, it's okay. I'm doing something that I love. People need to be doing what they love. We need girls and women doing what they love. That's how we get like cures for cancer and just general badassery. We don't want them to stop doing what they love because we taught them they aren't allowed to unless they look some particular way. We taught them that. Our voices are that powerful. 70% of 15 to 17-year-old girls avoid normal daily activities, including school, because they feel bad about their looks. So now we're just not going to get educations anymore because we're not pretty enough to be in class. 75% of girls with low self-esteem report cutting school, being bullied, drug use, or disordered eating. 75%. I just did all of those to be a great representation for you today. 92% of girls want to change their appearance, with the #1 goal being weight loss. Here's my problem with this weight loss goal. You get to pick what you want for your body. Why is that the only thing that women get to pick? I went to a new gym and I was really genuinely excited to go in and say, I want to increase my deadlift. Can you help me with that? I don't have a fat loss goal, because I wanted to see what they would say to me. And it turns out they don't have a packet for that. Do you know how many packets there are for men? We get weight loss. I got a weight loss packet. They apologized to me. We don't have a packet for that. I think it's fine to lose weight. I think it's fine to make empowered choices in your body. I think it's fine to healthfully move towards saying, I'm going to be at a different body fat percentage because go me. That's fine, but that's not what we're doing. We didn't even decide this. There are other options. So we can be mad at all of this other stuff, but I think that this is what we're learning in our homes, and statistics would show that too, because 54% of grown-ass women would rather be hit by a truck than be fat. So I'm not going to say that's Photoshop that needs to change. I'm actually going to take responsibility for that. My 4-year-old self really gets excited to see examples of powerful women. And it's a very 4-year-old part of me that's like, oh, Jim Sinkler said unapologetically strong. That's another option. As a person who has suffered from anxiety and depression, I would love to see you talk more about the other benefits of exercise. We want more people at this party. Tell them what else is there for them. I was shocked when I saw that feeding myself well and exercising on a regular basis was helpful to how I felt. And I wasn't depressed anymore because I moved. I literally had no idea that that was, in fact, a thing. Talk about that. It's okay to talk about the other stuff, but talk about that. As a woman, I would like to see this conversation framed in a conversation about self-care. We're not only taught to hate ourselves, there's a lot of stuff we're taught about ourselves, and one of them is that we're here to care for others. Even when we tell women to care for themselves, we say, so you can care for others. The airline motto, put the mask on yourself so that you can help your child, that's okay, right? That's important. I have never, in fact, it seems absurd, heard a man say, I like to do a couple of rounds of golf on the weekend so I can be a better husband and father. Like, they just get to do shit. We get to do shit. So I don't take care of myself so I can be a better mom. That's important to me, and it does make me a better mom. But I take care of myself because I am deserving of that care. And I'm not going to be here forever. I want my daughter to know she's deserving of her own care and not teach her that to be a mother and a wife and a woman in this world is to be a martyr. I'm not laying on that cross anymore. I get to show up in my own life, and I matter because I'm me, not because of who I take care of. As a mama bear, I would really love my daughter to not tell her story and how she felt about herself at the time. And if she does, I hope it's because she's finding her voice. I hope it's because she's finding her passion. I don't want her to have an easy life In fact, I hope that she has those character building moments where you have to go, am I this person or that person, and do it wrong so that you can make a hard turn. I want all of that for her. But I don't want that whole conversation to be in a pursuit of being less. I don't want her to look back like I can on every single photo of myself from the first 25 years of my life and know exactly how I felt in that outfit, exactly who in the room was smaller than me, exactly how much I was certain I wasn't allowed to be there. That's not what I want from her, and that is why a year ago I inserted myself into this conversation, because I absolutely believe the power of what happens when this group of women, not some other women, when you change this conversation, because they're bringing it to you. Fix me. This is wrong. This mess right here, that's no way to talk about a body. Fix me. And you're not going to give them a workout plan anymore. You're going to tell them that they're powerful. You're going to tell them that you're bullying yourself, and I get that. Tell them what those words are. Tell them that they're harmful to you. Tell them they deserve better. Name that moment. Don't give them a squat trajectory. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be really awesome for them later, but it's going to be better when you name what's happening. Don't let another woman walk away from you thinking when she says, fix me, that you agree with what she said about herself. It means we have to do some deep digging. It means we have to start owning our own shit and our own voices. But I absolutely believe that this room of women, this exact room of women, can dismantle all of that shit by changing their own minds and seeing how powerful their own voices are. It's the most powerful thing that we have, and you are absolutely deserving of yours. I am passionate about this work, and I'm excited to do it, but I can't do it by myself. So I sincerely hope you'll join me. Thank you.